After working from home for 6 or 7 years, you get into like I don't have any friends anymore. And then at about 9 or 10 years, you start going, that's fine.
Who needs friends, eh?
Who needs friends? I'm too old for that carry on.
All right.
All right.
Thanks for having us in your space, man.
You're welcome.
Glad we're finally getting to do this one.
Yeah.
That'll be good. Have you got an idea of what you want me to draw?
Yeah, but I want you to give me something easy, so I'm happy to give you something easy if you want.
Okay, we can make a deal.
I was thinking for you,
Yeah.
I'd like to see you draw a zombie.
Okay, yeah. I was thinking that seeing as we're in Dunedin,
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could do some sort of Dunedin creature, like whether that's some sort of like goblin or dragon or some kind of like Dunedin monster.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Ben,
Yeah.
you been a professional comic artist for about 14 years, right? You've done Baltimore, Witchfinder, Lobster Johnson, Hellboy, BPRD, Koshi the Deathless, like a long list. How do you introduce yourself usually?
I don't know. I don't like saying I'm an artist.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think of myself as an illustrator, I guess, or a comic artist. But then quite often you have to explain what a comic artist is, because people tend to confuse it with animation and other stuff. I'm used to introducing myself and getting kind of a glazed look,
Yeah.
or people politely suggesting I get a real job and kind of stuff.
From fairly early on, you decided to sort of set your path on drawing comics?
Yeah, well, when I was about 13, it was kind of an abstract thing of trying to work out in my head how someone does that. And I just thought, well, I suppose you probably start drawing really young. And at 13, I was kind of like, oh, I'm probably too old to begin the training.
Missed the window.
Yeah. And I thought, well, there's kind of nothing to lose by giving it a shot. I've got nothing else I'm planning on. So I just started drawing a lot, sort of trying to draw every day in an attempt to get better at it.
Did that feel like being in New Zealand?
Yeah.
Did that feel like an achievable thing to make a career out of?
No, until I was about 17 and I met Martin Niemand, and he was doing that. He was working in the comic industry from New Zealand. I think he was the first guy from New Zealand who made a living in comics while in New Zealand. So he worked on things like Lobo. He did a comic called White Trash. He worked with Glenn Danzig on his stuff. So I used to go to his studio after school and just kind of hang out and talk to him about comics. And
was he cool about having you show up and
and that was kind of always Martin's thing, is he never really turned people away.
Right.
You know, a 17-year-old kid bugging him every afternoon, and that was the nice thing about Martin. He was always really easy to talk to and got along with everyone. At one point, he did laugh about the first time I talked to him. He said, I don't remember this, but he said I walked up to him in the comic shop and said, oh, I've got this idea for this Batman comic. The Batman's got all these guns. And he was a dick about that. But that was all right.
But seeing what he was doing made you feel like there was a possible path to make a
also that was early to mid 90s. So people working in the comic industry were becoming millionaires. There was things like Frank Miller getting paid $1 million to draw or to write one comic. So it all seemed like it was an achievable thing.
And it was 2003 that you did a Buffy comic was the first kind of break, right? Was that the first
was it?
proper opportunity?
Yeah, that was my first paying job in the industry. And it was awful, and I made a mess of it. Then I got offered the chance to work in the game industry. So I thought, oh, that's fine. I've ruined things for myself in comics. I'll go and work in video games.
Like you've totally blown it already.
Yeah.
One go and you stuffed it.
Yeah. And it was only 10 pages, but yeah, I thought I'd completely blown it.
Yeah.
So then I went and worked on video games for about 2 years.
Doing like concept art or sort of character design or what kind of...
And while I was doing that, started to rethink comics and started to kind of refocus on the fact that that's really what I wanted to be doing.
Right. That experience made you feel more clearer that you definitely was comics that you wanted to do?
Yeah. And it wasn't that video games were particularly bad. I mean, that's the last time I had any money was doing that.
Yeah.
But I didn't like the cog in a machine kind of process. I could spend the next 10 years working for that company, and all I'd have to show for it was a game that I worked on with a whole bunch of other people.
Yeah.
And I might be able to go, I see that guy in the background there. I designed
this is one little
pants.
piece. Yeah, they're a massive team on games like that, right? It's a big
like,
operation.
I spent a year of my life on Lord of the Rings, and there's that thing. It was like that one guy in the background.
Yeah.
His pants. Or no, there was one suit of armor that I designed that got into the film and then cut out of the film, and there's a toy of that character, and that's it. And that was a year of my life, and I was kind of, hey, I don't know if that's what I want to be doing. Whereas comics, you sit down and you work for a year, and at the end of it, you've got a book, and that's what you did.
There's a tangible, solid page at the end of the day each day.
Yeah, and each day, yeah. So I thought, okay, I'll take a risk, and I will turn down all that money and try to get back into the comic industry again.
So that second sort of shot that you had, how did that come about?
Went over to San Diego and, showed my stuff around. It was a slow process. Like some people saw it, and for about 6 months I would get these kind of emails. Can you draw something on this character for this possible comic? So I'd draw some pages or just some sketches and send them off. And the comic would fall through.
Right.
And then a series came along that I did. It was my first series. Mike Mignola saw that, and I had the same editor. The editor I was working with before was Mike's editor, and so knew that I was a fan of Mike's stuff. He is the creator of Hellboy, and was successful enough that he was sort of in a position where he could expand Hellboy's universe enough that he could get other writers and other artists to come and work on these characters that were all a part of the same connected universe. Mike liked the series that I did and decided to give me a shot. So I did a one-issue thing for him, and he liked that, so that led to a series, and he liked that. So I think once I started working on his stuff, he could see that I was, doing research, looking into the period I was drawing, and sharing a sort of a sensibility towards storytelling, I think. Because he's not looking for people who draw like him or emulate him or any of that, but there's a certain
like a tone or something that you feel like he's looking for.
To the storytelling that he's looking for, I think.
How would you describe that universe?
I think it's really poetic, especially Mike's work. There's a poetry and beauty to it that I think a lot of people would hear the name Hellboy. You know, if you haven't read comics, you would hear that and just think, oh, that's a goof.
Like it's some schlocky kind of thing.
Yeah. And it has that. It's got monsters getting punched in the face because that stuff's fun. But there's a poetry to the storytelling and the imagery that I don't think other comics really quite manage.
Have you got a favourite out of all of the books that you've done together?
Usually my favourite thing tends to be the most recent, which would be Koshchei, which was so fun to do.
So who is Koshchei? Is it Koshchei?
I don't think anyone really knows. Koshchei, Koski. I say Koshchei, but who knows? It's tricky. I mean, he's a character from Russian mythology. He's sort of an undead, you know, he can't die. He's a mortal guy, and he's sort of a villain in a lot of Russian folktales. And Mike had him fight Hellboy at one point. Someone else drew that, but then Mike decided to do a Koshchei tells his life story. So I drew the series Koshchei the Deathless, which was Koshchei and Hellboy sitting in a pub in hell, and Koshchei telling his life story. So it's sort of a Russian medieval folktale epic. I was working on it one morning and realised probably the reason I was enjoying it so much was because it was everything I was drawing when I was 7 years old. You know, it was guys in armour and swords and dragons and all that kind of thing. Yeah.
It seems like you had lots of fun with the costumes and stuff on there. Everything seems really well. Like the world seems very fleshed out.
Yeah, and I that's one of my favourite things about the job is every now and then, well, it's sort of once a year, you get a whole brand new reality to make. Medieval Russian, and then onto, you know, Victorian England, and so I get to jump around all these time periods, and that stuff's really appealing to me. It's I really enjoy exploring, you know, these kind of different cultures and time periods. And
seems like running through all the stuff is essentially monsters, right? It's like there seems like there's something that very primal about creatures and monsters, and the fact that there's all these different, every culture in the world has some sort of monsters makes me feel like there's something very human instinct about looking for monsters. Or
for how long was it, like 300,000 years? We were living in caves hiding from literal monsters outside the cave. You know, there's saber-toothed tiger around the corner. Everyone keep quiet. And then the last 10,000 years, we started living in little houses that we made for ourselves. But I think that 300,000 years or whatever it was beforehand has instilled something into us.
Deeply ingrained.
Yeah. There was a bit in Baltimore that I really liked where he's fighting all these vampires and monsters, but the most terrifying character in it was a human who was like this religious zealot who would like torture women and children. And all the other monsters were just like, arr, arr. But this guy's like, no, I'm going to torture some kids now. And that, I really liked that feeling of the most terrifying thing in the whole series was this human. Yeah. Eventually he turned into a werewolf.
What are you inking with, man? What's your weapon?
No idea. That one?
This one?
I just hunt around on eBay until I find a cheap looking pen.
Yeah.
Because I buy them in bulk.
Yeah.
Just whatever's cheap.
It's got a little bit of flexibility on it. Like a brush
It's
pen
got
kind
you can go from a really fine pinprick to quite wide.
Is that what you use for the comics mostly?
Yeah, pretty much. My process is down to these two types of pens, really, and whiteout. Lots of whiteout all over everything.
And you're still doing the inking, actually, analog, physical inking, right?
So I draw it on Cintiq, on a tablet. Just the rough, what would have once been pencils, like I've done here with pencil, but I do it on the Cintiq, and then print that out really light.
Okay.
And then ink over the top of that.
Like on a light box or something, or just have it on
I print it out, so I lighten it up so you can hardly see it, and then print it out, and then just ink straight over the top.
Oh, like actually onto the printout, right?
Yeah.
Ah, that's cool. So you work from home, right? This is the office?
Yeah.
And how are you with working from home? Like, is that, I know for me, I've done it in various stages and sometimes found it a bit of a lonely kind of...
It is, but
job.
I've found if you can muscle through that, you kind of come out the other side and it kind of stops mattering. After about 6 or 7 years, you head, after working from home 6 or 7 years, you get into like I don't have any friends anymore. And then at about 9 or 10 years, you start going, that's fine.
Who needs friends, eh?
Who needs friends? I'm too old for that carry on.
How prescriptive is the script that you get? Like, do you get it? Is it like the first panel is this, or is it like here's the action on a page and you work out what panels need to be where? Like, I've never really done that.
It changes a lot. Like, different writers have different ways of writing and how specific they are. But yeah, it is quite. It's quite. Here's panel 1. There's this, and this. Panel 2, this, and this. And that's what I get sent. And then I think I'm given enough freedom to sort of go, no, it doesn't. Here's what happens.
Right.
To a degree. I try and, if I ever do that, I try and completely preserve the intent of what the writers put in.
But it'll be up to you to lay out, like, we need a big panel here that's close up and there's a little detail set, like the sort of staging of it all is you, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Do you enjoy that part of it? Like the kind of the being a film director kind of part of it?
Sort of. I mean, that's always the sort of the fun moment where the possibilities are endless, and then you start working on it and realize you're only as good as you are. I've had that a few times with, especially if it's something Mike's written. Usually it's a script that I'm so excited by the possibility of everything that it could be. And then I start work and maybe get as far as having the first issue done, and there's usually sort of a moment of going, it's only ever going to be that now,
Right. Yeah. That's the blank page is like a
there's infinite possibility.
Yeah.
And then you make it finite, and you have to live with that.
Is there a kind of a long-term plan to do your own comic?
Yeah, there is, and I've had this little thing I've been tinkering with for a long time, but not really having a chance to sit down and work on it properly. It looks like I'm going to have the opportunity to do that next year, which will be huge.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Is there a side of that that's kind of daunting, going out and doing your own thing?
We're not saying that. We're not even looking at that in the face, because if I stop to do that, then I will
talk yourself
not even try it.
Yeah. You gotta. Yeah, that sounds amazing, I think.
Yeah. So I've got to do it and not care whether or not anyone likes it, and kind of hope that it does all right.
Take the pressure off. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I've got to try it at least once, and if it's a huge failure, then I'll know.
Yeah.
And that'll be fine, and I can live
it
with
seems
that.
like you're more than well established now. That it seems like. I mean, your Buffy comic didn't ruin you.
Yeah. Well,
you're good. You're in.
I mean, it took me years to accept that it might not all collapse immediately. I mean,
seems like even the most like everybody gets that imposter thing, right? Like you're always
imposter syndrome. Yeah.
Like they're gonna find me out at any time.
Yeah, any minute they're gonna know I don't know what I'm doing. About a month ago, I had breakfast with this big deal comic artist. We were talking about that, and I asked him, "So, are you happy with your work?" And he's like, "Not really. He's never done a perfect page." The people you meet who aren't like that are generally the people who aren't that talented. It's always the people who are incredibly gifted. And I'm not saying I'm one of those, but that seems to be a general rule, that those are the people that are always like, I'm not that
I just need to improve this, or I still got to figure this out, or I'm trying things.
That's how you get there, is by having that kind of attitude to it. Just that idea of sitting back and going, I can't believe it, I drew that. I'm amazing. I'm so good. Look at this awesome drawing. It seems really weird to me. That's the thing about drawing in real life, is trying to get rid of all that pencil schnoz.
And not tearing your page in half. I've done that.
I did that. I did that on a commission once. The guy was standing there, and I'd done the whole thing. I'd spent an hour or whatever at like a convention, so the guy's standing there waiting for it.
Right.
And all I had left to do was to rub out all the pencil. So then I had to start again.
All right, man, you all done?
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah? You want to see this?
Yep. Nice.
That's you. That's the pen zombie.
Yeah, sure.
I first drew it with a speech bubble saying pens, but it looked like it said penis, so, so I didn't have to put that in the final one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
How'd you go?
Didn't eat him once. I don't know. He's cold.
I like it. I like the scarf. That's beautiful, man. That's awesome. I love the legs too. That's some creepy legs. Yeah, that's great. I love
And
the
the shaking.
steam. Yeah. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for doing that, Ben. That was really lovely to check out your space and amazing to catch up.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was great.